Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the T6 Motorsport Super Touring Championship, where time definitely does fly when you are having fun. We are already towards the penultimate round of Season 3. Of course, we've ticked off the other 8 so far this season. We've got just 2 more rounds to conclude this fantastic championship. My name is Zach Sweeney. Dara Thacker finally alongside me in the commentary booth for the first time in forever, it seems, as we take you round, of course, to the Malaysian Grand Prix circuit, of course, betterly known as Sepang, a beautiful venue to host the penultimate round before we head to the Nordschleife in a week's time. Dara, I mean, coming into this week, this circuit, this round, so much is on the line, so much tension towards the final 2.
Yeah, I mean, we have this tight championship battle, of course. We have the top 3 split by a point. Of course, we've got a tight cup championship as well. It's up on your screen now. We've got Mary Zabda in the cup, but look at the front. 1 point split in the top 3. I mean, it really is any of them, anybody's to win, really, from this point onwards. You know, just over 80 points up for grabs, and going into the final round, this could be really tight, but you want to position yourself in the best way possible here at Sepang.
You really do. So, of course, we'll head our way into qualifying, then, of course, into the 25-minute races that we've got there. You can see the results just flowing through your screen, all the way down to Fabio Gil, the last of the drivers that have managed to score points on at least one occasion so far this season. A couple of people, unfortunately, still in the minuses, the likes of Choke Turdic and Opacic as well, to round off the 29 entries that we had for Season 3. But we spoke about how close and competitive this championship is, and it's literally gotten to the point that at the front, of course, Bence, Farkas, Krisztian, Juhasz, Gasper Mrak, all the top 3 contingent, Pavel Mukkonen included in the equation, Gregor Hujek as well, only 11 points back. But it's gotten to the point where drivers are sort of taking back stewards' reports as to not benefit themselves, so they stay behind in the championship, keep it nice and close, and adopt less weight for the following round. The tactics coming into these final 3 rounds just goes to show the measures sim racers will take when there's money on the line.
Yeah, you know, if you can get a bit of an advantage by not submitting an appeal, maybe not getting someone a penalty, you might end up benefiting yourself in the long run. So it just shows how good this championship has been, that we are at that stage where, you know, drivers are actually rescinding their appeals, realising that if they submit them, then they actually might be in a worse position than they would have been before the penalty was applied. So, you know, particularly for the top 3, Farkas, Juhasz, Mrak, there's, you know, 1 point between them. I mean, it just comes down to absolutely nothing. It really, you know, we might as well not have had the first 8 rounds of the season and have these 3 going in, just have a 2-round championship, because really, you can forget everything that's happened so far because they're on a level playing field.
Effectively, yeah. And of course, you sort of do try to forget everything that happens beforehand anyway. Hindsight is a very, very terrible thing in the mind of an athlete, a sim racer, obviously in this example, because it gives you those scenarios, the what ifs, the if I'd have just overtaken here, I'd have gotten extra points here, I'd have done a fast lap in qualifying at this point in the season, I'd be further ahead. But you have to ignore that. Right now, you're all on a level playing field. It comes down to what you do over the course of the final 4 races of the season. They have all boasted success. They have all shown why they deserve to be the championship. But I suppose we should have had the first 8 weeks, because there was always prize money on offer for each of those 8 weeks. And I'm sure the drivers out there, of course, particularly at the front, because they've been able to gain quite a significant chunk of prize money. Of course, thanks to all our sponsors and to the people behind the scenes for making that prize money possible. They're not going to be complaining with a little bit of extra dosh in their back pocket in particular. But while of course at the moment they're in their practice session, before we then head into qualifying, how important is that track position going to be? Of course, particularly for race 1. Race 2 doesn't matter because it's reverse grid anyway, but going into race 1 to set yourself up for the evening, does it matter as much?
I mean, in a way, yes. I think, of course, with the reverse grid, you need to make sure you finish in that top 10. Otherwise, you are going to be finding yourself in a world of pain if you're one of those top 3 drivers. We're at that stage where, really, you just can't make those mistakes. So I think, in a way, it's going to be important just to keep yourself on not just on track, of course, but in terms of on track, in terms of your battles with your rivals. Because if you're Bence Farkas or Krisztian Juhasz, you're not going to really be that bothered if you're losing a position to Marvin Mackenberg's Sven Mackenberg if you're ahead of your rivals. So, yeah, I think we're at that time in the championship where you're really just racing certain drivers rather than the rest of the field.
Pretty much, yeah. It's all relative, isn't it, when it comes to sort of points and gains and things like that? Because, yeah, if you're 50 points ahead of another driver, you're not really going to be too fussy about losing 2 points to them. Whereas if you're only 1 point ahead of another driver, you're going to be a little bit more fussy about losing those 2 points to them, because obviously that's going to mean they leapfrog you. So it's all about weighing up your battles, that compromise, that balancing act that you have as racing drivers. Hopefully, of course, we still see the same level of competition, the same levels of respect that we've come to know and love over the duration, not only, of course, of seasons 1 and 2, but of course most recently in season 3 over so far our 8 of round 16 races that have led up until this point. They're heading out onto circuit now then for 12 minutes of qualifying. Slightly longer circuit, of course, here at Sepang. Last week we went to Bathurst, of course, which is probably quite a long lap in the touring cars. Sepang, though, as well, probably not going to get too many laps in. You've got to maximise each one.
I'm looking forward to this event. Sepang is one of those tracks where in these cars we can see some really, really good racing. It kind of suits this kind of racing. There's enough medium to heavy braking zones for us to really see these cars race well. But as you said, the lap is relatively long, so it might take a while for these guys to dance their way around the Sepang circuit. I have to be honest, actually, this is my first Sepang comms, I think ever, which is weird to say, even though I do love this circuit, because it's not a track that many people race at generally. Not many championships go here, and I'm not too sure why, because it does provide some fantastic racing action, and I think, even though we can already see this in qualifying, we're going to see quite a bit this evening.
I think so. I don't think there are really many sims that have Sepang. iRacing doesn't. Obviously the F1 games don't, although sim, grey area, we'll move on. AC does probably with mods, ACC obviously doesn't. rFactor 2 does, again with mods, and then Race Room, it's part of the free content, which is great, really accessible start to Race Room, which is the great thing about it. And even if it was paid, it'd only be like £2.50, £3, I think, something like that on Race Room. Even cheaper if you get it as part of a bundle. So big up Race Room, I suppose, in that regard. But yeah, it's a fantastic venue, and it's a shame that we don't see it more often at the higher level. All depends, obviously, on the car track combination as well, what you take into it as such. But the great thing about Sepang, I think, is the fact that you can take pretty much anything there, and they will 9 times out of 10 work really nicely.
They will. So, yeah, I don't really know why we don't see more of the combinations. So, or of a combination on Sepang, because we do get some great racing action. I mean, you can see the amount of cars crossing the line as we're getting going. Some drivers might get a little bit caught up here, but of course, some of the drivers have created a little bit more room, the likes of Gasper Mrak, who we're looking at here. They're going to be able to have that little bit more leeway in terms of how much they can catch the cars in front on their opening lap.
Yeah, exactly, and it is that balance of sort of being with people that you trust to sort of be quick as such. Of course, around Grand Prix layouts, particularly here at Sepang, a lot of high-speed sections where being in the slipstream is going to be paramount, but there is also a lot of high-commitment areas where if you do get stuck behind another driver, you do run the risk of being held up. So it all depends how much risk you want to carry, but we've seen time and time again how a lap can be sort of made or lost based on slipstream. So it is a very, very vital thing to get right. Sometimes it is a bit of luck, but also when you do get lucky, it's making sure that you then use the tools that you've been given to really maximize your opportunities.
Yeah, and that's the case for a lot of these drivers. They've really just got to maximize everything that they've got in this race, and especially for the guys further back, they've really not got much to lose. There we go, got the words out in the end, because of course they're not going to be fighting for the championship, but with the weekly prizes, they're still fighting for a nice 20 quid in their back pocket in this event, and even next week as well. So we've got to keep an eye on that one. So yeah, and we also got to think about the likes of Marek Zabdir, who won't be going for any kind of podium or win because he wants to get that cup win.
Yes, for those unfamiliar, of course, the Cup trophy, very similar to, I believe, the Jack Sears trophy in the British Touring Car Championship. Basically, the highest driver who hasn't finished on the podium over the course of the whole season, basically the biggest underdog, will then receive a little bit of an extra cash in their back pocket. And seeing as Marius Abdi got a really slow start to this season, he's going to be wanting to sort of maximise his opportunity of coming home with the most money possible. So much so to the extent that he literally said point blank, I don't want a podium. I just want that cup. I want to finish as high as possible without finishing inside the top 3. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing some technical difficulties with the server being set up. A couple of issues regarding the ballast arrangements with some of the drivers. So we'll get that sorted as soon as possible, just to, of course, correct that as to not have any complaining sim racers, because there is nothing worse than a sim racer who is unhappy.
Or Zach Sweeney, who's unhappy, to be fair. That is something that thankfully the public don't get to see, but goodness me, it's a scary sight. Anyway, Marvin Mackenberg going up to P3, good opening lap from him. Gregor Hujek and Gasper Mrak, the two Slovenians, doing well so far in this session. It's Krisztian Juhasz who's really dropping back. Bence Farkas as well, not yet got a time on the board as Hujek works his way through. I think we're at this stage of qualifying. Of course, it's a 12-minute session, but of course, as we all know, when the time hits 0, that is the end of qualifying. So we've only got another 4 minutes until effectively that checker flag flies.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, if you want to see it sort of in maybe other sim terms, yeah, you've got 4 minutes to effectively start your final lap. If not, tough luck, mate. When it comes to the when it comes to the qualifying session, you've got to make sure that you are timing it to perfection. There is a point on offer for pole position. I just want to go back a couple of seconds and apologise to Rich for doubting his skill when it comes to particular run of the server. In fact, he was actually pointing our attention towards the remark made by Gasper Mrak in regards to the open qualifying. He's shown his opposition to it, I believe, on a number of occasions over the course of the season, but he literally said that Marius Abdi was half a second back going into the final sector and still was able to have a look to race him on that same lap. So it just goes to show how powerful that slipstream is, and sometimes actually that compromise of maybe being held up behind a driver for a corner or two is then made up by the benefit you get on the straight.
Yeah, so I think some of these guys won't be too happy if they start to trip over each other. The guys in front just wanting to get a good lap time in. I mean, Hujek, Farkas, Mrak, they're now the top 3. We're kind of waiting on Krisztian Juhasz, but he is in 6th. It's not awful. A couple of names to shout out is Shorzusa up in P5. He's not had the best of seasons, but a very good qualifying. And Pascal Jean-Pret was also sticking it up there with the big boys. So an interesting qualifying session so far. And I think a couple of drivers up there that could cause some problems for some of the drivers in the championship battle and might just get in the way a touch. Marius Abdi, of course, as well. Just outside the top 10, he'll be looking to get inside to try and maximise his cup standings.
Exactly that. So he's going to be trying to get as high up as possible without getting, as I say, breaching into that top 3. 4 minutes and 16 seconds left of qualifying. So still waiting for the final couple of lap times to come in, but looking very, very promising for this man right here. Gregor Hujek down in P5 in the standings, but only 11 points off the lead. The championship is still firmly alive for the Slovenian. So let's see, of course, what he can do on his couple of final runs in qualifying. Purple to the first sector. Of course, he's got Krisztian Juhasz breathing down his neck as well, trying to set his improvement as well, down in 6th place at the moment for the Slovakian driver, who again is matched, tied on points after drop scores with Bence Farkas at the front of the field. Another purple sector for Gregor Hujek. He wants every point that he can get, and that extra point for pole position is going to go a long way in a championship as close as this.
Yeah, it literally, when we're talking about these championships coming down to a singular point, this could be everything. This could be the championship win for Gregor Hujek. Let's see if he can go even faster on this time. They'll have one more lap to try and improve upon after this one, because they won't be able to get around another 2 full times for the next 3 minutes and 7 seconds. But for Gregor Hujek, This is the perfect start to the evening. I mean, but we have seen it before, haven't we? Where a driver gets pole, wins race 1, and then struggles to come back in race 2. So there is always that risk that he will run, but it's currently looking very, very good for him at the moment. Although, having said that, look at Gasper Mrak.
Yeah, remarkable stuff. Of course, the two teams are racing, the two Slovenian drivers, and have continued to impress over the duration of Season 3. Mariusz Zabzit across the line, only 12th fastest for the pole. However, qualifying is never his strong suit. There's, I think, maybe 2 occasions I can remember where he's convincingly been quick in qualifying. The rest of the time, though, Zabzit is firmly a racing driver.
Yeah, I think there's any doubt about that whatsoever. So, you know, Zabzit, he'll be looking to keep himself in the top 10, but at the same time, I mean, he came off at the back of 2 4th places last week, Mariusz Zabzit, so he maximised all the points you can get in terms of trying to keep yourself in the cup standings. So we'll have to see if he can keep that momentum up, but he needs a little bit more time to find if he's to put himself in the top 10 here this evening. But, yeah, we're looking at this now with everybody off laps. Everyone who's crossed the line will now be on their last run. A couple of drivers may not be able to get another time in, but Gasper Mrak will get another time in, and he is still improving.
He is. Somehow there is more time to be found for the Slovenian, who's out there about halfway around the circuit. 1:32 on the clock, so we'll be looking for his final lap time. Won't get another chance in this session before, of course, that the session basically just says, nah, done, timer tick 0, and that is the session done some, which makes it even more imperative that you time it right. 2/10 quicker to the middle sector and purple once again, so looking to sort of cement himself in that provisional pole position. Can anyone else get close to him? Of course, this run to the line for Gasper Mrak, is it going to be enough in order to improve? Is he going to manage to, of course, hook up that final sector? Of course, he's got 1 more corner to go before the actual timing line. 50 seconds, of course, on the clock. Let's see what Gasper Mrak can do. It's very, very close, though, at the front of that qualifying field.
Yeah, we're looking at what a quarter of a tenth of a second, so absolutely nothing. That may change as we cross the line with Gasper Mrak here. Can he extend that gap? No.
Ooh.
He's gone 1,000th slower than he did on his previous run. I mean, I nearly said you can't get close to that. Of course you can by 1,000, but realistically, I mean, that is 2 gorgeous lap times from Mrak, and he deserves that pole.
He very much does. It was not much in it, though, in the end. 24 thousandths of a second separate the 2 Slovenian teammates of Gasper Mrak and Gregor Kujek in their pursuit for the championship. Provisional championship bench. Hungarian in P3. Pascal Jean-Pierre joins him on row 2. Charles Oyster, a great qualifying for the Flying Dutchman in 5th ahead of Krisztian Juhasz, who rounds off row 3. Mate Mikovic from Sven Mackenberg, row 4, with his brother Marvin just in behind in P9. Nenad Vadisavljevic, the Serbian, rounds off the top 10. Christian Orban there just outside in P11. Pavel Mukonin will be looking to make some progress forward as he rounds off row 6, with Zabzit and Clough company on row 7. Kozlov rounds off the top 15 ahead of Jacek Kovalevsky in P16. Beyond that, of course, we had a number of drivers to complete what has been a very extensive field, in fairness. Stu Neal, Fraser Rostan, Stenzo Choke, Oplicic, Mukamov to round off the top 21, with Eska Vosi rounding off the 22 car field that we've got here today. 3 minutes then in warm-up before we head towards our first 25-minute race, before we then flip the top 10 on the head and do it all over again. What's then, Dara, going through the driver's mind heading into the 4th last race of the season?
I think these drivers, they've just got to be calm and collected. I know it's far easier said than done as we sit up here nice and warm in the commentary box, but if you're bench Farkas, Krisztian Juhasz, Gasper Mrak, you cannot be making big mistakes. I mean, you've just got to make sure that even if something does happen to you, it may not be your fault. You may get hit, you may get spun. You've just got to stay calm, because you cannot afford to let emotions get the better of you. Because at this stage of the season, if you drop a few points maybe in one race, that could be championship over. So for the likes of bench Farkas, just got to make sure he's calm, make sure he's collected, make sure he gets through this race as best as he can, and focuses for race 2, because he's going to have an uphill challenge there as well.
And when it comes to points as well, you really are rewarded for winning. I know that's obvious because you get the most points. for winning. What I mean is the weight of that position relative to the other positions in terms of the points gap between the next position down. So P1 gets 20, P2 gets 17, so there's a 3-point swing between P1 and P2. Beyond that, it's only intervals of 2 down to, of course, from P6 onwards, which is 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So winning a race holds huge amounts of weight. If you can do that, at the very least, you are gaining 3 points on your rivals, which is enough to really spice up the top 3 in the championship. If Mrak wins this race, slam dunk, he's leading the championship going into race 2.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we have to get back used to having a winner's bonus, don't we, after the last...
Exactly, the weekend we've had. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so actually, you actually get something for winning, rather than just picking up an extra point, as everybody else does. So there's actually some weight behind winning the race. So any of these guys who wins, even if someone like Pavel Makona, I mean, obviously, Makona's further back, but Hujek in there as well. I mean, if there's a surprise in there, you know, they could leap themselves closer up, and when there's that 5-point gap, it becomes maybe psychological more than sensible, if that makes any sense, in terms of even if you're further back in race 2, you're starting further back, and it doesn't look like you're going to pick up points. When they're 5 points behind, the guys in front are thinking, I've got to race them, I've got to make sure that they don't overtake. There's always that chance, if you can gain yourself, if you have the points on the board, you know, it becomes psychological for race 2.
It really does, and getting into the head of the driver that you're competing with is half the battle. Of course, when Nico Rosberg retired from Formula 1 in 2016, little bit different, of course, in pedigrees as such. Actually, no, T6 Motorsport is up there with the FIA Formula 1 World Championship, of course. But basically what he said is that the mental pressure of a championship is so much, almost unbearable to deal with. The prolonged emotions, the mental stress that you have trying to compete with yourself, your confidence, then of course fight with another driver out on track. It does take a toll, and it's something that drivers of course have to become accustomed to. But we have got Race Room's finest on the grid. Who's coming out on top for race 1, Dara?
I'm going to say it's going to be Gasper Mrak. That's what I'm going for.
Nice. Well, he's got the lowest ballast of the top 3 in the championship, of course, because he's third in the championship relative to the other 2, who, of course, are taking an extra couple of kilos with them. Only 15 kilograms on Gasper Mrak's car, compared to 20 and 25 for Bence Farkas and Krisztian Juhasz ahead. So he should be in the driver's seat. I'd hope he's in the driver's seat, of course, because he's about to get going for a race. But metaphorically speaking as well, should be the one maybe that has the advantage, particularly at a circuit like Sepang. On the formation, of course, but now the 5 red lights will come on. 25 minutes on the clock. Round number 9, the penultimate round, race 1 of the T6 Motorsport Super Touring Championship here in Sepang. A jump start at the back for Escovosi, but we are up and underway. Gasper Mrak getting a good launch from pole position as they all tuck in behind on this run towards the first chicane. Nicely done then from the Slovenian pair, P1 and P2. Of course, Bence Farkas trying to get himself into the mix in the red and black machine just in behind. Late on the brakes from the entirety of the top 3, but no competition there. However, sideways, it must be said there, of course, from Gregor Hujek, who's trying to fight with him as they run their way through turns 2. And now it's still Gasper Mrak that leads, but Bence Farkas mounting an almighty challenge for second.
Yeah, he's right in this as he tries to go around the outside as they run their way through this opening sector of the racetrack down towards turn 4 for the first time. Gasper Mrak holds that lead, but Hujek is really having to defend hard because Farkas is trying to dance his way right around the outside here. Not quite able to pull it off completely, but I mean, we're still seeing moves in the background. That order is changing. It's lighting up like a Christmas tree with those position changes. So clearly moves being made all the way through the field so far.
Yeah, a couple of people wanting to capitalise on some progress. With everyone being nicely bunched up, it's the perfect time to go for some moves. A bit further back, we're seeing some competition here. Marvin Mackenberg completing the top 10, losing a place, to, of course, to his brother Sven, who started at the position behind him. Vadas Sablovic as well, moving back past. So Marvin Mackenberg down 2 places at least. Contact going into the uphill left-hander, though. That's going to be suboptimal, really, for the German driver, who's boasted a ton of success so far this season. He very much argy-barges his way through past not only his brother, well, that was his brother that he made contact with, Sven Mackenberg, in the pink and blue. So not great between the 2 Mackenberg brothers, but of course just trying to track their way along and maximise their opportunities. As things stand, they will be on the front row for race 2. Side by side, just in behind as well, Krisztian Orban trying to make some progress forward.
Let's see if he can put this one off around around the outside. Nearly 2 car. Oh, there's a spinner there. That's Shorzusa spun around, and Krisztian Orban's been caught up in that as well, so he's dropping down the order. It's allowed Stu Neal, who qualified P17, to put himself into the top 10, but it is a blanket that you could chuck over, 6 cars there, 2 deep, 3 wide. Is this 4 wide into the final corner?
Maybe so. It's absolute insanity to round off the first lap. Marius Abdi getting an almighty up and under on all of them, hanging tight on that inside line. They still emerge, multiple cars abreast, with still multiple rows deep as well. Lap number 1 is in the books. It's Mrak from Juhasz and Farkas, the top 3. But this battle for the final place inside the top 10, of course, the all-important reverse grid position. Marius Abdi able to hang on. Huge snap of oversteer under brakes, though, locking the rears. It's Argy Bargy. Pavel Mukonen is able to edge his way through with Marvin Mackenberg. Marius Abdi completing the top 10. Sven Mackenberg trying to deal with the carnage. But goodness me, what a way to start race 1.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this all the way through the season, haven't we? It's a good job that there's both of us here this evening, because I think if there was only one of us, we would be a little bit hoarse at this point. I mean, says the person who wasn't here last week, but we'll move on from that quite quickly. Shok up to P10, the Hungarian driver. He's up 9 as well. I mean, 22 car or 23 cars started this race. I mean, Gasper Mrak, of course, jumping the start. You know, you could say there's 22 cars started this race. Up 9 positions, it's half the field that he's already found his way through in a lap and a half. So incredible stuff early on, and just shows that there are opportunities for some of these guys with the gaps forming between the likes of Vladislavic and Mukonen, and even Mikiewicz and Vladislavic, with the Serbian running a relatively lonely race at this stage.
Yeah, he is, which is very much unlike him, because he does like to defend quite severely. Sven Mackenberg going defensive. A huge look there from Michael Clough. Goodness me, launching one to the inside. That was a very bold and brave move, it must be said. Of course, a couple of times this season, Michael Clough has been disqualified for reaching the 40 incident point limit, of course, for contacts and off tracks and things like that. It's not stopped him, though. He's not slowing down at all in his aggression.
He's not slowing down at all. So we're seeing how these drivers, they're not holding back, are they really? I mean, early parts of the season, you're thinking, oh, you know, the championship, gotta try and get yourself in the best position possible. At this point, if you're not up there, you're not up there. You're not going to get up there. So you just want to make sure you get, you know, if anything, if nothing else, pride in your position. Get as much money in your back pocket as you can. If you can pick up some weekly positions, as we're still seeing battles into this final corner. No one's giving up on this. Sven Mackenberg trying to make the move here on Stu Neal, but further up, I mean, you've got Zabdir in there. He's trying to make a move, whilst Marvin Mackenberg is trying to defend. I mean, it's just pandemonium at the moment.
It really is. 20 minutes still left to go. Sven Mackenberg fighting away, of course, with Stu Neal. Sven Mackenberg able to just find his way ahead quite nicely going into turns 1 and 2. I really do like that chicane, the looping, almost hairpin style nature of turn 1 as it snails its way back to turn 2, then the downhill dip through 3. Really must be quite nice to hook up. Must be quite tough though in front wheel drive touring cars that we've got here today, but nonetheless, Malaysia and Sepang, a very, very strong circuit. Not really much changing at the front. Bence Farkas is through into second, so to break up the Slovenians to make a what sandwich?
Slovenian sandwich.
No,
Hungarian.
No.
But
wow, that is
what you've done there is you've made me you've put me on the spot and you've made me overthink.
No.
I've thought about it and then thought, no, well, it can't be that because that's obvious, and then realised, no, actually, that is the right answer. It's a Hungarian. I remember that you've jumped on this bandwagon recently, haven't you?
No. I've always been on it. I've always had that opinion of like, why do they say it's a Slovenian sandwich when it's not a bread sandwich, it's a ham sandwich. You call the sandwich by the filling. It's just recently that me and Lewis McGlade often kick off about it when people sort of get it wrong. Him more so than me, because of course 2-time VCO Simi award winner has a bit more weight than me. But it's fine. We'll move on. But yeah, no, Slovenian bread with Hungarian filling. Maybe that's a nice sandwich somewhere in the world with their local cuisines as such. 18.5 minutes left to go in this race. Nonetheless, that is the fight at the front. That's the almighty sandwich. Of course, the black and red filling of Bence Farkas in his very mean looking Cupra Leon. I do like the black and the red on it. Probably the meanest looking livery. Really suits the sort of the dynamic of the car, particularly with how the headlights are sort of set up as well. Very pointy. But nonetheless, to round off another lap, it's Gasper Mrak that leads, very much tying in with your prediction.
you know, what can I say? I'm a predicting king when it comes to these things, which is actually incredibly false. I never get things right. Although, having said that, there was one time that I know you made a silly prediction last night in the BCO.
Oh, on Vecchio, yeah.
Yeah, Vecchio, that he'd come from like 46th to win the race. I did make a prediction someone who was, I think, 17th would win the race, and he did.
Who was that?
A time before, so since then. You won't know, it was a random broadcast I did, but I was very proud of myself. And I got to interview him afterwards, and I was so pleased to tell him that I predicted him to win. And he literally couldn't care less. But anyway, hopefully Gasper Mrak can improve my slim percentage in terms of accurate predictions here by beating Bence Farkas to the win. But Hujek is still in there, Pascal Jean Pretre as well, and in this battle in behind with Desco Joke, he's still right in this battle and nearly going flying off that curb.
Yeah, and nearly flying into the side, actually, of Krisztian Orban, who I think he did make contact with. That is going to allow Sven Mackenberg to have find his way through into 14th as they pick their way into a double right-hand complex. Of course, Joe trying to work his way forwards. He's done a great job of that, but he managed to get the majority of those positions while the race was still compacted. Now it's all settled down. Consistency and pure pace is coming back into the limelight, and unfortunately he is dropping backwards ever so slightly. So I think for him, it was the initial carnage that saw him very rapidly accelerate up. Now over the course of the next 16.5 minutes, he has to sort of get his foot into the sand and hold firm in his position.
Yeah, he does. He just needs to make sure that he sticks around where he is. I mean, Marin Stabile doesn't want to be giving up his position. I mean, if he stays there and finds himself P1 on the grid for race 2, he would be wanting to give up positions because he doesn't want a podium. But he wants to be in a position where he can do that rather than having to claw his way through the field. We're coming down towards the final corner now. Don't let the grid, all the grid slots and the pit lane to the left fool you. And this is coming up to the final corner, not the main straight. And Stu Neal is trying to find his way through on Michael Clough, the two British drivers, near to each other. I mean, we haven't had too much British success this season in the Super Touring Championship 3, but you can never rule out a championship run for someone to maybe win a race.
Maybe. You say championship run, I don't think any British drivers are going to be winning the championship. To be fair, Lloyd Biddulph is the reigning double champion of the T6 Motorsport Super Touring Championship. Of course, it was Trip 6 back then, and he's taken a step aside to focus on our Factor 2 for this season. So we have had success, obviously just not this season. That's gone the way of the Slovakians, the Slovenians, and the Hungarians. Also, of course, the Russian driver Pavel Mikkonen, who unfortunately is down in 8th place for this race, losing a decent chunk of points relative to his rivals who are in 5th, 2nd, 3rd, and 1st at the moment. So Mikkonen dropping back ever so slightly, not helped by that poor running qualifying down in P12.
No, not at all. So we'll have to see if he can, claw his way back through. I mean, we've still got 50 minutes of this race run. We have so much action early on that it's hard to believe that we're still not quite halfway through this race. Sven Mackenberg is holding off the challengers of Orban and Schoke as they run their way through, the two Hungarians jostling over P14. But for Sven Mackenberg, it's not looking good. In terms of his championship battle, of course, he's down in P7. He's not far ahead of his brother. If we were to say like this, Marvin's going to have a much better advantage heading into race 2, and they have the bragging rights at the dinner table.
Maybe so. That's something that we often joke about when it comes to the Mackenbergs, because they are so close on pace, like ridiculously equal with each other. Of course, when it comes to racing ranked events and things like that, like the 2.4 hour races, the ranked championships and things, that's wide from Stu Neal, Rory rejoins just ahead of Sven Mackenberg in P12, but they are ridiculously close. There's been a number of times where they have competed for high positions, but on the majority of occasions they've actually worked together. For strategy, they do like a little bit of an alternate strategy with fuel saving and tyre saving and things like that in those longer races. We saw earlier this season, just to kickstart the second half back in March in Silverstone, where they took, of course, that golden 1-2 finish at Motegi as well, where, of course, Marvin and Sven both able to boast success both in race 1 and in race 2 with their first podiums of the season. They are a remarkably strong contingent, but still in this race, P9 and P30. So even they aren't consistently fighting at the front end, and that is how high of a level that we've got for the T6 Motorsport grid.
Yeah, exactly, and I think I might have said this last week, but the first ever race room broadcast I did had the Mackenberg brothers in, and they both disconnected at exactly the same time, which hammers home to me that they were in fact brothers.
I remember it was a Bathurst race, wasn't it?
Bathurst, yeah, Bathurst 2.4 hour.
I think it was me, you, and Lewis. I think.
Yeah.
I remember that one because they were looking strong, and then we were just like, well, where they gone? And then they just disappeared. Well, the brothers, of course, unable to get back in because that's not how it works in race room. You can't reconnect, and unfortunately brought an end to their run. It's not the first time that's happened. I think it also happened at an event in Daytona, but that might just be my memory being very fuzzy and all the races I've ever done just sort of merging into one really long one with events from here, there, and everywhere. But yeah, the Mackenberg brothers, very, very strong stuff, and it was a very enjoyable Bathurst 2.4 hours actually, and the start of a very unfortunate run of commentaries because I had to put up with you for a long period of time. I couldn't just get away with a one-off. It's fine. We'll live with it. I jest, of course, most of the time. Anyway, Sven Mackenberg into P12 in the fight, of course, not quite for the top 10. At the moment, Marius Sabda will be starting on pole position. And, of course, for a normal driver, that's, yay, I'm on pole position. For Marius Sabda, it's, oh, I start in a podium place.
Yeah, and I think that's the case here. So, Marius Zabdi, I mean, he's not going to be too. I mean, it's going to come to a point where he will let the drivers past because he doesn't want the podium. So we're going to have to keep that in the back of our minds if he does manage to stay in this top 10 as we do run our way through this race. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking further back because we've got the likes of Kovalevsky back in P18. He's still finding a way. He's a driver that you probably expect to be a little bit further up. Of course, 18. The number of years that Zach Sweeney is now past. Everybody.
Boom. Whoop, whoop.
Birthday. That was Friday, wasn't it? Your birthday or Thursday?
It was. No. It was Friday. I messaged you at 10 minutes to midnight to say, how have you enjoyed your 19th of April, Dara? Because he was reminded the day before and forgot, so it's fine. It's okay.
Forget.
You were busy. You had your hands tied. When's your birthday?
September 28th.
September 27th.
28th.
29th.
And you can send me a message on the 27th. I mean, you'll be accurate. To be fair, at least you'll be early in that case. Better than me. Yeah. I mean, regardless, you know, I am famed among my friends for being absolutely awful at birthdays. And that's no different in the sim world. But at least I'm better at, well, maybe better at commentating and remembering birthdays, but I know that Zach will very much dispute that. Anyway, 10 minutes to go in this race. We've kind of reached a bit of a lull, haven't we? We had all of that melee off of the start. Gasper Mrak still leads, but Farkas and Juhasz are still second and third. And I mean, we're kind of just waiting for race 2 really now, aren't we?
Honestly, yeah, at this point, there's not much to be decided. We've just sort of reached that plateau. I mean, it's there. We've got the fuse. We just haven't quite got the spark. Everything's just sort of equidistant. We've sort of reached that equilibrium between everyone where they're close, but there's not that drive, there's not a mistake or a pack battling to really instigate these battles. So at the moment we are just waiting for someone, maybe towards the final sort of couple of minutes of this race, onto the final couple of laps, where people then start to realise that time's off the essence and then go for moves as such, whereas right now they're just waiting, biding their time, playing the patient game. Maybe, who knows what's going through their heads. Maybe it's just a case of they can't quite get close enough as of yet. But it is still Gasper Mrak that leads Bence, Farkas and Gregor Hujek. Pascal Jean-Pietre as well, completing this 4-car train. So it is close, and all it takes, I think, is probably one small mistake from Mrak to really bunch these guys back together.
Yeah, but we might see it kind of not explode, but jump out a little bit, I think, if something happens at the front of me. Gasper Mrak, of course, heading for a championship lead. 196 points is what he would be sat on. Bence Farkas would be second, just 2 points back on 194. But it's really Krisztian Juhasz who's losing out, picking up 11 points only. We'd be back on 188. So, yeah, an 8-point deficit at this point wouldn't be ideal, but he will start further in front of the others. But when you've got the likes of Martin Mikiewicz, Vladislavic, Makonian, Martin Mackenberg to try and get through for a race win, it's not the easiest of tasks. I mean, these are some of the top drivers on the race room platform. We've seen it, of course, week in, week out in ranked Bence. So it's great to have so many of these top drivers in the race, but it means that with the reverse grid, I mean, you think that, oh, these guys are slower. They're really not that much slower.
They were just less fortunate in race 1. They didn't finish as high in race 1. That doesn't necessarily sort of see them any slower, because in qualifying we saw how close these drivers can be. But of course we've got the prize money to incentivize the best. £285 going to the championship winner, 210 to P2, 135 for P3. And unlike the first 2 seasons, we've got the prize money extending down to 5th, 85 and 50 for P4 and P5 respectively. Also then, of course, the extra cup prize money. Of course, the highest placed driver in the standings that didn't place on the podium gets themselves £40. And then £20, 15 and 10 for the top 3 placed drivers in each of the mini championships that, of course, the combined points of race 1 and race 2 for each round. And then also the attendance award for 3 £30 prizes for the drivers that complete 16 of the 20 races throughout the entirety of the season. So plenty of money out there to be had, of course, thanks to our amazing sponsors that we'll, of course, touch on a bit later on, as Gregor Hujek gives a half look to the inside of T1. But we definitely have got a lot of prize money, which isn't bad, of course, considering that they turn up, do an hour's worth of racing, and then get some nice money in their back pocket.
It's always nice to have a bit of money, isn't it, in your back pocket, especially if you want a Lightning McQueen tattoo. It's always.
Oh, that is true. It does help. Cheers, Rich. Bye. It is going towards it. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, for all of these guys, there's so many prizes really to win. Although through the season, you don't really have to just be looking for the championship. I mean, if it was just the championship, I don't know if we'd see a lot of these drivers bother turning up, of course, because if the money is gone, then it's gone. But you've still got the chances every single week just by turning up, you get some money. So you get paid for your attendance and for your committedness to this series.
That's why you've made no money this season, isn't it?
Fantastic. I was waiting for something. And there it was. Oh, inside line here for Gregor Hujek on bench Farkas, trying to force the issue now on the run in towards the tight turn 9. A place where we often see some moves running through turn 10. You've got to go right, and right again before we get through turn 14. But Gregor Hujek, he looks like he's bored of waiting now.
I think so. Wants to instigate a bit of a move. In doing so, has allowed Gasper Mrak to build a gap of just over 1 second. Into the final 5.5 minutes then of race 1, riding backwards on Gregor Hujek because he is looking forward to attack Bence Farkas, but also he's got the Swiss driver of Jean-Pierre as well, just in behind, ready to attack at a moment's notice. So we will find out. It was a bit of a half look, not enough to seal the deal, but definitely telling Bence Farkas what his intentions are and how he plans to attack the rest of this race.
And there's not really much of this race for him to really plan out a move and then execute it, because he's got to get it done relatively soon if he wants to have it. 5 minutes left. I mean, what's that? We're lapping just over 2 minutes. So we've got 3 more laps of this race here at Sepang. Time is running out. I mean, 3 laps is still quite a long way here at Sepang. Lots of overtaking opportunities, and he's not going to wait for any more than this one at turn 1. Really trying to send the car into the inside of the opening corner, but it's not going to work out there. He's just going to have to carry on sitting and waiting. Pascal Jean-Pret, I mean, he'll be more than happy to pick up a couple of spots if he can, if these two start battling too hard.
Exactly that. Of course, Jean-Pierre down in P10 in the championship, just behind Marius Zabdir. In fact, only 3 points behind Zabdir. And of course, if you're top 10 in the standings in Season 3, you automatically get yourself a guaranteed spot on the grid for Season 4. So nice to know that it is confirmed that that is happening. I'm very much looking forward to that when that does start. But let's get, of course, through Season 3 first. So Jean-Pierre wanted to secure his place, of course, for Season 2, because Krisztian Orban in P11 is only 9 points back on him. So Pascal Jean-Pierre looking very, very strong in order to gain some points relative to the Hungarian. Gregor Hujek, though, still very, very close to Bence Farkas. Gasper Mrak, now he's been able to clear away from the slipstream that we touched on in qualifying is ever so powerful. He's been able to slowly but surely bridge that gap further and further ahead, now to 1.5 seconds clear of the rest.
Yeah, he's looking increasingly comfortable at the moment, isn't he, in his car. Maybe seen how he will do in race 2 when he has to make the moves. Of course, like I said before, we're qualifying, it's all well and good, and we've seen it before, that a driver can get pole, pull in front in the lead, not really look back in race 1, win the race, take home all the points, and then you start P10 in race 2, and you know, they don't really go anywhere. They stick around P10, and in the end, they don't even pick up the most amount of points of anybody in the evening, despite the fact that they were in such control in the opening couple of sessions. You've always got to be aware of something like that. I mean, we're looking at people like, I would say, your likes of Pavel Makonin in terms of maximum points won in this race. He might be able to move through. Of course, he'll probably almost certainly get in a position of marrying Zabdir, because Zabdir won't be finishing in the top 3, that's for sure.
If it's a fight for P4, maybe not. If it's a fight for P3, he's going to be like, yeah, off you go, mate. It's fine. Krisztian Orban looking for a move on Sven Mackenberg, not close enough, going into the final corner, of course, but actually gets a really nice up and under. The gap doesn't quite stay open for long enough, of course, so he's going to have to sit back quite nicely. But yeah, Pavel Makonin, particularly in race 2s, I always remember back to Suzuka where he was able to run really, really nicely off the back of starting well, finishing decently in race 1, getting some early progress, and then using his pace once he's in front. He's a very, very dangerous prospect. He's a very impressive driver. Think back to last season at Monza, where he was able to take a debut podium in race 1, and then of course cement that with a top 5 in race 2. Fighting though for second place, Gregor Hujek around the outside of Bence Farkas. Who's going to be the one to win this battle onto the penultimate lap of this race? The Slovenian now trying his hand inside line through the long left-hander.
Let's see if he can pull this one off as they run all the way through this middle sector. It's going to be the outside for Hujek as they continue to turn right. There's so much rotation on this racetrack, so much turning, of course. It's really more degrees of turn than many other racetracks in the world. So a lot of pressure you put on the tyres, a lot of wear you put through them as well. Gregor Hujek still just trailing. I mean, he's trying everything, really. You've got to give him credit for that. He's not leaving anything on the table, but Bence Farkas defending like an absolute tank at this stage of the race. And Hujek, I mean, he's now really got the final corner of this penultimate lap and one more lap to make this move stick.
Yeah, opportunities wearing thin, and of course they've got the Swissman just in behind as well, applying some pressure. Gregor Hujek, he's had a good couple of goes, but both of them have been thwarted by Bence Farkas, who's put up a stellar defence, trying to, of course, minimise the gain for Gasper Mrak, who at the moment will be going into race 2 with a 2-point championship. In fact, no, it'll be 1 point, because Bence Farkas was... no, he wasn't. Gasper Mrak was on pole, wasn't he? So it's going to be a 3-point lead in the championship. Gregor Hujek looking to the inside of the final corner, not quite close enough as we start the final lap then of this race. One more tour of Sepang for race 1.
Yeah, of course, Pascal Jean-Pierre, the famous Swissman. I've never heard that one before, but I'll write that one down for future reference.
Is that not a thing?
He's riding... No, they're Swiss. He's a Swiss driver.
Oh well.
Regardless. Gregor Hujek is still trying to find this way. I mean, there's this why the Swissmen exist as much as Williams is, which is a community team.
That's fine.
But, Gregor Hujek still trying to make this move. I really do think it's running out now. It's going to take a big old send, maybe at turn 9, but he's not going to be able to make it here at turn 4.
He is not. Definitely not late enough on the brakes. I don't even have to be on a VCO or RaceWatch channel, and I'm going to get absolutely quizzed for it. It's fine, ladies and gentlemen. Basically, I'm not even going to go into it because that's going to prolong my pain and actually make everyone else aware of the meme. So I won't indulge into that. I'm a bigger man, which is not hard when it's Dareth Thacker next to you. Gregor Hujek, though, in P3. Pascal Jean-Pierre just in behind. 0 seconds on the clock. Half the lap left to go as they run their way into the double right-hander. Very sharp double apexed corner here. You've got to maximise your exit. Bence Farkas doing a great job in staying in front.
Yeah, he really is defending well and has defended well all the way through this race. But here is the send that we were expecting at turn 9 for Hujek. Not going to work out though. Bence Farkas kind of had that one covered, saw it coming and covered it off just a touch to ensure that he can maintain this P2 ahead of Hujek, who of course isn't really in this championship battle anymore. I say that, he's 11 points off. I mean, the fact that we're saying that someone 11 points off from the championship may not even really be in it just shows how tight it is at the top, and that you're really going to have to gain quite a few points in these couple of rounds to put yourself back into the picture. But Hujek losing time, Farkas doing a fantastic job to defend as they make their way through the turn 14 for the final time. It's just turn 15 now when he's just trying to break the toe into the final corner.
Yeah, of course, it will be Gasper Mrak that takes victory, and of course the championship lead with it. Pascal Jean-Pierre, maybe one final send for Gregor Hujek. It's not enough for race number 1. Bence Farkas is going to be able to keep that second place unless there's something sensational he can do on the run, but this man right here took his opportunity from pole position, didn't look back. The moment there was an opportunity to run away, he's checked out and is victorious for race number 1, as I say, taking the championship lead with it. Bence, Farkas, Gregor Kucek complete the podium. Great drive there from Mate Mikovic, who quite on cue actually is in a Williams Esports livery in that car, which is great. Marius Sabti completes the top 10. Of course, we'll start on P1 for race 2 with Michael Clough, Sven Mackenberg just outside. We'll run through the entirety of the finishing order in just a second when everyone has crossed the line. But not a bad way to open the evening, and, well, a big shake-up already in the championship. Gasper Mrak going from 3rd to 1st.
Oh, well, I mean, you say a big shake. I mean, he just gained, all he needed was a couple. If he, I mean, right, let's try that sentence again, shall we? Winning the race meant that he got that far. I mean, that's how tight it was in the championship, but it just shows how good he was. Pavel Makona picking up an extra quite fast lap. He's not going to say no to that either. He
absolutely is not. Gasper Mrak then, as I say, victorious. That's the Hungarian sandwich with Slovenian bread, with Bence, Farkas and Gregor Kucek completing the podium. The Swiss driver, Pascal Jean-Pietre, in 4th, ahead of Mate Mikovic to round off the top 5. Krisztian Juhasz, P6, not the best race for the Slovakian, ahead of Pavel Mikonin, Marvin Mackenberg, Nenad Vadisavljevic and Marius Sabdik to complete the top 10. Of course, that's the grid reversed for race 2. Michael Clough, Sven Mackenberg, Christian Orban, Jules Oyster and Fraser Rostance to complete the top 15. And we'll let the rest of the field run their way through all the way down to, of course, Escovosi, who jump-started the race by... It wasn't even, like, close, where you could sort of, like, be like, yeah, it's fair enough that he jumped. He went a decent time before the lights went out. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a bit of a transition into the server for race 2. Myself, Zach Sweeney, Dareth Thacker, we're going to step aside for just a moment. Don't go anywhere. Race 2 coming up. Well then, ladies and gentlemen, we've had our break. I hope you're ready for some more racing action. Still myself, Zach Sweeney, Dareth Acker alongside me to talk you through all the racing action to come in race 2 of round 9 of the T6 Motorsport Super Touring Championship. Season 3, of course, takes us to Sepang. We saw a fantastic race 1. Dareth, of course, they're on their formation lap. Who's coming out on top in race 2?
Oh gosh, can I make it 2 from 2? That's the question. I'm not going to say Mario Zabdir, because I think that might be a little bit of a silly answer, but I will go. I'm going to stick to my guns. I'm going to go with Mate Mikiewicz. Mikiewicz is going to take it for me.
Not a bad shout. Of course, he'll be starting P6, I believe, after a 5th place in race 1. Not a bad shout at all. I think I'm going to go with Mukkonen. I think Mukkonen is definitely a strong shout, as we touched on in race 1. Be interesting to see, of course, who is going to be the one to go and do it. Gasper Mrak, of course, had great pace throughout the first 25 minutes. The question is, though, has he got the overtaking ability around Sepang?
I think that's the question, really. I mean, we did see some moves early on in the race, but we didn't really see too much further in, but we're about to get going.
We are race 2, 5 lights on, 25 minutes back on the clock. Mario Sabs it on pole, but for how long before he drops himself off of the podium? The final race of the penultimate round of Season 3 is up and underway. Nice start, in fact, actually, from Pavel Mukkonen. You can see the blue and the grey darting to the inside to try and maximise his launch. Of course, in 4th place, side by side, between P2 and P3, as Mario Sabdir leads their way in towards the first chicane. Mate Mikiewicz, of course, you can see in the Chill Blast livery, just trying to work his way the long way round, nip his way into contention quite nicely. Nice and clean, though, for the majority of the top 10. A little bit of argy-bargy, but nothing too major. Mario Sabdir able to take a nice lead as Pavel Mukkonen works his way into 3rd.
Yeah, Zabdir's still leading, but of course he will probably rescind that at some point in this race. Marvin Mackenberg will be hoping to take full advantage early on, maybe get through, and hope Zabdir holds the others up later on in the race, but you can never be too sure. Inside line, we're seeing fighting from Krisztian Juhasz, trying to make his way through and up in front of Mate Mikiewicz, who, let's hope for my sake, gets my prediction 2 from 2, but he's not going to do it down the inside there at turn 5. He's just going to sit and wait in behind. So a good start, really, for Pavel Mukkonen and a few other drivers in that top 10. Not great to Bence Farkas, down to 11th now, outside of where he started.
Yeah, not great at all. Of course, not often that we see Farkas going backwards off of a race start, but unfortunately that hasn't been the case. Mrak up to P8, Hujek into P9, of course, where he started. Goodness me, huge turnaround there, backwards, going into the corner. Michael Clough involved, Bence Farkas able to find his way through to P7. I think Gasper Mrak and Gregor Hujek both involved, 2 of the big contenders for the championship, particularly Gasper Mrak coming into race 2, the championship leader, and he has tumbled his way outside of the points.
Yeah, that's really not ideal for him, and he's going to have a bit of a recovery to do now. Well, Gregor Hujek is out. Gregor Hujek is DNF, so he is not going to be picking up any points at all, and he will stay on 181 points here this evening. That really ends, you'd say, his championship challenge. So awful for him, but great if you're someone like Mate Mikiewicz, who was 14 points behind coming into this race, or even Pavel Mukkonen, who was only a couple points behind Gregor Hujek coming into this race. And you know, that P4 in the championship was looking ever more likely for Pavel Mukkonen. But that being said, if he can pick up even more points in this particular race, he could be on the back of the top guys in the championship. Krisztian Juhasz came into this one 10 points off the back of Mrak. Well, with Mrak down in P15, picking up the 1 point, and Juhasz picking up in P4 13, he's back in front.
Yeah, nicely done. Of course, just goes to show about consistency. Of course, the drivers do have a drop week. The standing that we've been going off is Valasavovic under pressure from Mate Mikiewicz through the first couple of corners. Bit argy-bargy between the two of them. I think Bence Farkas is going to have a good look on the exit of turn 3, the long way around, of course, but does seal the deal quite nicely. In fact, for Mikiewicz, he's going to lose the place to Christian Orban as well, his fellow countryman, who goes to the outside into the uphill braking zone for turn number 4. So beautifully done, of course, from each involved. Valasavovic, how eager is he going to be to hang on to P5? When it comes to drop scores, they might have to take this penultimate round as their drop score. Be interesting to see as to what that does to the championship standings. Of course, we'll update you next week when they get posted. Christian Orban fighting away then with Shaw's Oyso, who had a sensational qualifying and is now trying to make up for it, of course, in race 2. At the moment, sat 8th.
way up the order. I mean, he's Sven Mackenberg there in that pink and blue car, trying to work his way up the order as well, back towards his brother, who is in a very nice P2 at the moment. Inside line, though, for Sven Mackenberg on Krisztian Orban. Juhasz not too far in front here. It's a little bit argy bargy at the entrance into turn 9, the inside line. Krisztian Orban on this long run through turn 10, and Sven Mackenberg having to duck back into line. But we really have seen kind of frantic start early on in this race, and you know, Marvin Mackenberg, he's in a good position, but particularly Pavel Makonin, because if he wants any chance of this championship, came into this evening 8 points down on Farkas and Juhasz, gaining big points on particularly Farkas in this race so far.
Exactly that, and wants to, of course, make as many as possible. As things stand, he'll be gaining 2 on Krisztian Juhasz. I think he lost 4 in race 1, 2 positions down. Well, of course, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, at the moment is going to be gaining points in race number 2 nonetheless. Juhasz Oyster looking to the inside of Krisztian Orban into the final corner. The red and white machine trying to go the long way round. Of course, the Hungarian of Krisztian Orban. Juhasz Oyster in the all black, the Flying Dutchman, up through into 8th place, able to hang on quite nicely. Has got sight of Mate Mikovic, who's falling back on this train. Interestingly, though, that Marius Abde hasn't relinquished the race lead as of yet to Marvin Mackenberg. Juhasz Oyster looking to go defensive as Krisztian Orban attacks to the outside.
Yeah, I think we're going to wait for Marvin Mackenberg to sorry, not Marvin Mackenberg, for Marius Zabdi to give up the lead really to the end of the race, because if he can stay where he is now, he can build up the gap and make sure he can secure his P4 in a way that he wants to, rather than you know, giving it up now and then fighting his way to stay in that position. So I think he'll stay up right at the front for as long as he possibly can, even if that means to the final corner of the racetrack, if we're being honest. Pavel Makonin, though, he's fighting with Marvin Mackenberg. Realistically, this is the battle for the race lead. Marius Abde is there, of course, but Pavel Makonin and Marvin Mackenberg, they're going to be fighting over the 20 points come the end of this race if Krisztian Juhasz can't catch up to these two.
Yeah, at this rate, Pavel Makonin definitely got a good shout for the race win. Maybe we'll go 1-1 in predictions for the evening. Who knows? Pavel Makonin, of course, fighting very, very well, but Marvin Mackenberg wants the taste of glory. He's very late on the brakes going into the uphill left-hander that, of course, was the venue, the site of the initial lap 1 crash that saw 2 of our championship rivals out, and of course the 2 teammates firmly out of contention in this race. Gasper Mrak up to 13th now after that incident. Of course, Hujek, immediate DNF for him. 18 minutes just under left to go, or just over left to go, just under 19 minutes. 18 minutes and 50 seconds there, we'll settle that one. Left to go in race number 2. Pavel Makonin seems pretty secure, of course, in P3, however, is firmly knocking on the door of Marvin Mackenberg. It's a shame that Zabde isn't going for the win, because he's definitely got the pace to go for it himself. Orban, though, still battling away with Juhasz Oyster.
It just shows the depth of field, really, I think, here in the Super Touring Championship, because Marius Zabde isn't really in the championship battle, going for the cup at this point in the season, but he's still showing that he has got pace, realistically, to put himself in the championship battle, maybe come season 4, so he'll be someone that we've got to keep an eye out for. Krisztian Orban's still fighting away now with Juhasz Oyster, who's doing a very good job, the Dutchman. Up 6 places so far in this race. Our biggest gainer, who isn't called Screw Neil, who himself is up 8 spots. But yeah, a couple of good starts. And we kind of expect this, don't we, with the reverse grid races, as some of the drivers further back can move up. If there's a little bit of contact, as we saw with Gregor Hujek, it can cause some drivers, if they can pick their way through, to gain 5, 6, 7 positions and really kind of kick themselves up the championship.
Yeah, exactly that. And of course, with championship positions does come prize money, as we touched on. Anyone inside the top 5, which at the moment is Farkas, Juhasz, Mrak, Makonin and Hujek. Mate Mikovic, though, only 10 points back on Hujek, and at the moment is looking very, very strong to maybe go for that and get himself £50 come the end of the season. But we still have the 2 races at the Nordschleife, plus the rest of this one in Sepang. That'll be interesting in a week's time, I think, when we head to the Nords, because yeah, it's a long one indeed. Very, very tough circuit in its own right, particularly when you take it in touring car racing as well. I think Balasabljevic is living up to his name of the tank, as we've dubbed him over the course of the last few seasons, because still Bence Farkas is unable to find a way past.
I mean, he's getting a bit of a taste of his own medicine, isn't he, Bence Farkas? He did this in race 1, defending stoutly his position for P2, but now he's facing this similar stout defence from Balasabljevic, and Farkas isn't really able to do anything about it at this stage of the race. We've still got over a quarter of an hour left here for him to try and pick his way through, but Bence Farkas knows how to defend. He did it very nicely in race 1. I mean, maybe that gives him a slight advantage, knowing how to possibly break it down, but at the same time, he really is just feeling what his rivals were feeling in race 1.
Yeah, pretty much. You give and you take, basically. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction, I suppose, maybe in that vein. I don't quite think that's applied to racing, though. Bence Farkas looking to the inside of the final corner, but no way through still on Balasavic, who, as we always touch on. I always remember back to season 1 at Zandvoort, where he was just an absolute unit in his VW Golf, of course. Amazing for choosing the Golf first and foremost, but of course for secondly, of course, for putting on such an amazing defence. That always springs to mind when I think of Balasavic, an amazing driver in of his own right, and at the moment in 5th place. Approaching half distance though very quickly, still 15 minutes and 37 seconds left to go as Farkas is searching for the move. Zabdis still leads from Mackenberg and Mukkonen, and at this stage, sort of what is the plan of attack for Bence Farkas? How much of a hurry is he in to get past Balasavic, do you think?
Well, obviously, coming into this race, Gasper Mrak 3 points in front of him, currently sitting in P12, so that's going to be only picking up 4 points. Farkas would be picking up what is 10 points now, gaining another 6. He'll be back in the championship lead by 3 points, but it's this kind of situation where you want to hammer home your advantage. You really want to put the pressure on Gasper Mrak, who is down the order, and basically make him flounder somewhat, because every position Bence Farkas gains from here, apart from, well, if he gets into 5th, every position forward will gain him more points per position than it is for Gasper Mrak behind. So, you know, there's that added bit of impetus that he can have as he does go for the inside line at turn 9. It's late on the brakes, but I think Vladislav saw it coming. There's nothing Bence Farkas can do. I mean, the way that turn 9 and 10 flow together means that you really have to have a very good exit on the inside line through turn 9 to get it over the outside of turn 10.
Yeah, you really do, and it's all about as well being committed when you do go for that move, which unfortunately Farkas hasn't been so far. Of course, looking once again into this uphill right-hander that does sit very similar to the last sector at Fuji. Of course, this time turning right as opposed to left, as is the case at Fuji. Actually, no, the last corner you go right, but that's a little bit tighter. But very similar in the sense that it's very wide going in and pinches at the apex, but you can take a number of irons going in. Pavel Mukkonen looking to the final corner. He, of course, has got Krisztian Juhasz for company just in behind. So looking forwards to attack, backwards to defend, and that is never ideal when you're stuck in a train.
No, you don't really want to be stuck in the train, you know, in the ideal world. But once you are, and you're kind of in the middle, looking forwards and looking back, then it's difficult to really mitigate what you're going to be doing, because you want to be moving forward and you want to be fighting up. But at the same time, you've always got to be aware of those drivers in behind you and know that there is always opportunities. If you make any kind of error whilst you're fighting up in front, there could be someone behind you ready to take advantage of just the tiniest error, and all your hard work over the last 10-15 minutes is undone in just in a second.
Yeah, exactly. And that is how easy it happens, how scarily close you always are to having everything thrown away. It takes the blink of an eye, a snap of your fingers, whatever it is, and your whole world can be rocked upside down. Balasavic defending through this very long left-hander, of course. Yeah, I know my left and right. Into the next right-hander. Bence Farkas, of course, going to the inside. Balasavic, though, trying to keep his footing, gets pushed all the way to the outside of the circuit. Farkas is through, up into the top 5 finally.
He is up into the top 5 at this stage, but I think he'll definitely want to be going that little bit further. But let's see, I mean, Vladislav now really trying to retake that position from Farkas. Mikiewicz is in here as well to you know, slip up any kind of positions if these two really come to blows. But Bence Farkas now, he is going to be going after those top 4 guys. And whether he can catch them or not will remain to see. But if he can, you know, that's exactly what he needs for his championship.
Yeah, more points equals more places in the championship, and with how close it is, you need to make sure you are maximising each and every single one. It's this stage of the season, more than anywhere, where you are really focused in on how can I gain more points? Do I go for the fastest lap? Do I push harder in qualifying and get that pole position? Do I push for that extra position? Because every point matters, even if it's only one, it will make a difference come this season's end. Vadisavljevic, though, not making the Hungarians' life easy whatsoever. He's looking to the outside of the final corner. Mate Mikovic as well getting involved. Pavel Mukonin versus Marvin Mackenberg swapping places as they start the next lap to kickstart the second half of this race. Vadisavljevic is now sandwiched, of course, between the two Hungarians of Farkas and Mikovic either side of him, and very, very close, that top four fight for the lead as well. Vadisavljevic, though, once again counter-attacking towards turn one.
Yeah, the outside line not really going to be the best one, as you know we go more than 180 degrees of right hand down in towards turn one. Turn two, though, you can dance it around the outside. You'll have the inside line for this downhill left-hander. As we continue downhill, of course, you know, the most similar turn one, I think we can all agree, would be at the Shanghai International Circuit, although this is a little less rotation. There's still very similar characteristics to the circuit. Gasper Mrak, we'll look back at him because he's down in P11, of course comes into this race as championship leader, but that will not stick if he cannot pick up quite a few positions here. He's got Sven Markenberg, Krisztian Orban, Juhasz, right in front of him, and I think his bare minimum expectation is to get through on all three.
I think so. They are all lined up for him, and he's still good. It's not a good thing that he spun, but it's a good thing that happened so early on in the race, because it gives him so much more time to gain it back up, right? He's still got the whole race left to go. He can just see it as he's had a poor start or started further back in the field, and he's having to make up that time. Whereas if it happened later in the race, he hasn't got that motivation of having to charge through the field, is probably cruising at a slightly slower pace, then he spins and doesn't have any time to recover. So I suppose a bittersweet, well, it's very much bitter, but the sweetness is there, just as a bit of an aftertaste that he still has a lot of time left to recover from it, and he's not wasted this opportunity at all, knocking on the door of a top 10.
Yeah, I think talking about bittersweet, I mean, Mario Zabin will be hearing the podium music thinking it's a bittersweet symphony, of course, because he doesn't want that podium. I'm very sorry, I was too proud of that one when I was thinking about it. Less than 10 minutes to go. Come on, bittersweet symphony.
No.
My word, you're far too young. Right, less than 10 minutes to go. Krisztian Orban going around the outside of Juhasz. I'm going to have to explain this to you at some point. Krisztian Orban still fighting with Juhasz. Gasper Mrak is the driver in here. It's really hoping that these two come to blows because he can gain a couple of free positions. But I will hand it over to you and I'll get a screenshot of what that is.
The guy looks like you. He looks like you. I searched up Bittersweet Symphony and all I can see is this guy. And if he had blonde hair, he's got the curls, he does kind of look like Darren Thacker. I can see some resemblance. I don't think that's what you were getting at, but yeah, potentially. I don't know. Whatever. I am only a 2-day old adult, as I'm going to put it, because I'm still a baby, relatively, and I'm yet to grow a beard, unlike Ewan O'Leary, who has gone from babyface to midlife crisis in the span of about 4 weeks. Side by side here, though, up the front, Krisztian Juhasz carving his way through into second place.
He is carving his way up the order at this stage. Juhasz doing everything he can, and realistically, this is the race lead for him. And he needs it, really, to keep himself relevant in this championship. Goes into this race 10 points behind Gasper Mrak, but as it stands, will make up more than 10 points. I mean, he'll be making up 14 points and will therefore be in that championship lead, possibly, with Bence Farkas down in P5. It does get quite tight, but he does gain 9 points on Farkas at this stage of the race. So yes, he would be in the championship lead by just 2 points. So it's still tight going into the final round, but it just shows that there is opportunity for these guys. So yeah, interesting stuff at this stage. Mario Stamp is still holding on. There's a nice gap between Mackenberg and Farkas at the moment for him to slot into, and I'm sure he's eyeing that up at the moment.
I think so. With 7 minutes 35 seconds on the clock. Marius Abdit, of course, still leading the way. If he does take this win, it will knock him out of contention for the Cup Championship. I'm not sure who would replace him as the leader of that particular standings, but he has definitely made his stance known on that, in the sense that he does not want to finish on the podium, and he's very happy with P4s just to get as many points as possible, while still not, of course, finishing on the podium, which, by the way, the closest number to P3, which is the last step on the podium, is 4th, which is why he's getting the most points possible without finishing on the podium. 7 minutes left to go now. We're probably looking at 4 laps left to go, I think. Yeah, it will be 4 laps left to go, of course. So 3 laps at the line. Zabda still leads Juhasz Mukonin, who's unable to find a way through. This will be a very important win for Juhasz going into the final round.
Yeah, incredibly important. I mean, Juhasz needs this to stay relevant after quite a bad race one here this evening. He just needs to pick up the points, and Gasper Mrak being down in P10 really is helping him out, but Mrak really does need to get through Orban and USA as quickly as he possibly can. It could be disaster if he doesn't, and if he loses the championship by 1 or 2 points, that's where he's going to be looking at. Having said that, gets through Krisztian Orban on the timing page, or maybe not. They're going to be funny side by side regardless, those two back there. So yeah, interesting just to see how this unfolds. Like I mentioned in race 1, we've talked about how drivers pole win race 1. They just don't have it in race 2, and that's what we're seeing here. Oh, hello, Mario Zabde, dropping back to P3.
Ah, I wonder what he's doing. He's still on the podium though. Pavel Mukonin though launching one to the inside. There is contact with himself and Krisztian Juhasz, but nonetheless he takes the lead of the race with less than 6 minutes to go. What a send from the Russian driver. Beautifully done as Krisztian Juhasz immediately on the counter-attack at the next earliest opportunity. He's back through to take the lead.
He's back through to take the lead, and that's incredibly important for his championship. I mean, Zabde's still fighting this one. He's not really giving it up. He's still going to be trying, maybe just to spice it up a bit at the front with Mukonin and Juhasz. But I don't think Juhasz and Mukonin will be too pleased about what they're seeing and won't really think that it's very welcome at the moment. We'll have 3 more laps to go when they come around the final corner this time around. But look at the man who's just lurking in the shadows. Bence Farkas, that black and red car, it's arriving on the scene.
Very much is. He is looking ever more menacing, side by side momentarily once again for the race lead. 3 laps left to go here in Sepang. So many implications in regards to the championship. So much on the line when it comes to prize money, and it all comes down to a couple more races. Pavel Mukonin looking to the outside of the first chicane, not quite close enough, looks for the up and under. Krisztian Juhasz has remarkably managed to park it in the best way possible. Zabde knocking on their door, but won't really be looking to go forwards. He's actually, funnily enough, looking to go backwards, as we've touched on a number of times. That would then promote Marvin Mackenberg into the shout for the podium places. Of course, Bence Farkas there as well. This could very much be anyone's game. It all depends as to how they negotiate this lap to set them up for that final run to the line.
Yeah, and I think it really does create a bit of intrigue, doesn't it? Because, of course, the racetrack does end with 2 straights with that heavy braking zone at the final corner. So sends are going to be expected here on the final lap, and maybe even the penultimate lap, even this lap of the race, with not long left in this race, in the championship as well. So, Pavel Mukonin, obviously, he wants to pick up P4 in the championship, will move himself up into P4 almost regardless here, but he wants to really hammer it home and maybe even put himself in the conversation for P3 as well. But he really has to overtake Krisztian Juhasz if he's going to do that. But Juhasz picking up all the points he can at the moment, and he's going to be very pleased with how it's going.
He really is. Gasper Mrak is back through into the top 10 as well, into 8th place. So he's had a remarkable recovery to that position, considering he was firmly backwards and in the side of other cars, playing a bit of bowling going into that corner and on lap 1. So very close. There he is. Trying to limit the damage, and that's the thing, isn't it? We've been touching on it all weekend, really, with Infinity and things like that. But of course, more so right now, because that's when it's relevant. When in a championship, it's not going to be perfect. Things are going to go wrong. The way that the champions make up for it, though, is that when things go wrong, they try and make it seem like it was just a meh race. That they recover, they limit the damage, and that is exactly what the Slovenian is doing, putting his best foot forward, heading into the Nordschleife.
Yeah, and trying to put himself up into P7 here ahead of Shaw's. Uso wasn't pleased about that, flashing his lights to the Dutchman, who, of course, if you remember back to Aragon, went airborne, which was one of my highlights of the season. But anyway, Gasper Mrak, he's... Exactly, the Flying Dutchman, exactly. Gasper Mrak still looking at this move, maybe a late one into turn 1. It means that Uso has to really defend the inside and just about gets himself to the apex and gets the car stopped. But Mrak needs to get this position, and if he can get through on Uso, there's always that chance of getting through on Mikiewicz as well, because he's not very, too much further in front, but all the while he knows that his championship arms are up at the front of the field, and it's just damage limitation for him at this point.
It really is. Every point counts. And now he's having to defend from Krisztian Orban as to not lose progress that he's fought so hard for. Into the right-hander, of course, at turn 4. He's able to get ahead. However, that compromise line has given Krisztian Orban a potential run as they run their way through the sweeping left-hander into the right for the next overtaking opportunity, probably at the clear curb. Of course, that double right-hander after this mini straight. I don't quite think Orban is going to be close enough, though. A minute and a half left on the clock. Juhasz very close with Pavel Mukkonen at the front, but all the action all the way through the field.
Yeah, I mean, we've been spoiled, really, all season long with the amount of action that we've seen on the track. And yeah, it's great to see that these guys are still finding out with Juhasz on the inside of Mukkonen. Mukkonen is still trying to loop it all the way around the outside. Zabdir in here, a little bit of contact on the rear, quite a bit of contact in the end. And all of this is just allowing Bence Farkas to rock up and say, hi guys, I heard there's a battle for the win on, and I'm interested in joining in. I mean, he's got one lap to make anything happen. He might even be able to pick off Mariusz Zabdir if he tries to let Marvin Mackenberg through. So, you know, lots to happen here. The top 5, though, by less than a second, 1 lap to go, sums up this championship, doesn't it, Zach?
Pretty much, yes. If you need any reason to maybe get yourself onto the grid for T6 Motorsport Super Touring Championship Season 4, this is it. Get yourself involved with some of Racestream's best. If you think you can hedge it against the best on the platform, then maybe give it a go. Get yourself involved for next season. Prizes on offer and racing like this and us two. Well, I don't know, maybe. We've not been confirmed for Season 4 yet. Rich might want to get rid of us. Who knows? But that would then be effort trying to replace us. But then we get to talk about you and say mean things about you on the broadcast, which is fine. So get yourself involved. Anyway, fight for the lead. Coming on 5 cars, 3 wide. Momentarily huge crashes. Bence Farkas far too late on the brakes, starting the final lap.
Yeah, that is not the ideal line whatsoever. I mean, he's still trying to make a move. You can see him trying to force it, but maybe trying to force it a little bit too much. And with Mariusz Zabdir now back in P4, there's not that hope of maybe he can pick up that point in the final couple of rounds. Oh, sorry, in the final couple of corners. So a little bit more difficult now for Farkas to pick up the points. But with Mackenberg up in P2, Mukkonen won't be too pleased, and Mackenberg will be very pleased, as he will put a little bit more distance between himself and his brother as they try and chase themselves up to P5 in the championship. Mariusz Zabdir, though, you can still see him here as Kimmich has disappeared there. Was it Mukkonen DQ'd?
Wow. So, what that'll mean is, of course, they get 40 incident points. For those familiar with iRacing, you'll know the whole X system. 1X for going off track, 2X for losing control, 4X for contact that is deemed your fault. They get 40 over a race distance. And with track limits at Sepang, it's a fairly wide circuit with a bit of runoff, plus the fact they've been very argy-bargy for the majority of this race. 40 incident points very quickly add up.
Do, and it's disappointing for him to be out right at the end of the session, and that means that the drivers at the start of this race in P4 and P5 got no points at all. It's perfect for the driver in P6 into this race, Marvin Mackenberg. He's up into P2, and he will be gaining some very nice points in the final couple of, or in this round, and maybe going into the final couple of races when we go to the Nordschleife. But there's only one more corner to go. Juhasz has this wrapped up with a bow on top. Bence Farkas, though, he'll get past Mariusz Zabdir, as Zabdir doesn't want that podium.
No, nicely done. Bence Farkas then promoted onto the podium, which of course is not going to be good news for Krisztian Juhasz, who is trying to make up as many points as possible in his claim for the title. He rounds the final corner in Sepang. He weaves his way across the finish line. He takes victory for race 2 of round 9 of the T6 Motorsport Super Touring Championship. 2 races left to go in this season when we head to the Nordschleife in a week's time. The championship and £285 for P1 is up for grabs. A huge level of competition throughout the rest of the top 10. What a race that we saw, and what an evening it was here in Malaysia.
Yeah, and I mean, in the end, with Gasper Mrak finishing in P6, he's just picked up the same amount of points, realistically, if not just one more, than Krisztian Juhasz did over the course of the evening regardless. So, despite the poor race, he still picked up, and he got the fast lap, an extra point to help him along.
Even better, he was a man on a mission, but so too was Krisztian Juhasz, making up for P6 in race 1 with P1 in race 2. Marvin Mackenberg up there in P2 ahead of Bence Farkas, who completes the podium, double podium of course for Farkas. Great points in the championship. Mariusz Zabdir of course continuing his run at the top of the cup standings ahead of Mate Mikovic, again keeping it consistent in P5. Gasper Mrak Huge recovery from him in P6 ahead of Shaw's Oyster, Krisztian Orban, Sven Mackenberg and Vadasavovich that complete the top 10. Kozlov from Rosdance and Mukimov, the top 13 from Choke, and Fabio Gil to complete the top 15. Jacek Kowalewski, Stu Neal, Opicic, Klaf and Eskavoski, this time not jumping the start in P20. Pujek, Jompiach and Mukonen, all of them not making it to the checker flag in time. That is a huge shame for those three. Huge implications in the championship, and I fear with each race that passes by, we lose more and more of that competition for the championship. But we'll have to see how things rack up, of course, when it comes to drop weeks. The standings, when we check in first thing next week, will be very interesting, of course. But Dara, time does fly. In a week's time, it'll be the final round of season 3.
Yeah, it will. And I've totted up the points that we've got so far this evening. If we don't count in drop rounds, I'm not too sure exactly who has what in terms of drop rounds. But if all of these points count, we'll go into the final round with Bence and you can only really laugh at this. Bence Farkas, 209. Gasper Mrak, 208. Krisztian Juhasz, 207, the battle for the title. 3 drivers, 2 points, incredible. And then for P4, Gregor Hudek, still in P4, 181. Makonnen, 179. Mikiewicz, 178. And then for P4, 3 points, 3 drivers. I mean, it really couldn't be closer than this. The Mackenberg brothers look by 7 points as well for P7. I can't wait for next week. It's really hotting up, and it's going to be anybody's championship here in the Super Touring Championship.
It really could. Of course, there you can see the calendar. We started all the way back in the end of February when we went to Suzuka. We fought our way through Aragon, Imola, the Twin Ring Motegi, Spa, round off the first half of the season before we kickstarted things for the second half with Silverstone, the Slovakia Ring, Bathurst a week ago. We've ticked off Sepang. We've got the Nordschleife in a week's time, the 28th of April. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you are joining us right here on the T6 Motorsport Super Touring Championship, of course, here on YouTube. My name has been Zach Sweeney. Dara Thacker has been alongside me. We thank everyone, of course, for watching along at home. We send a huge thank you to our sponsors, of course, the track sponsors, Imperial Meat and Fish, Udressi's Garage, Marché de Mube, and Team Fondue, the main sponsors of the championship as well. So thanks to all the hard work done behind the scenes from Rich and Pascal to make that possible. Otherwise, the huge prize pool of £1,300 for the entire season would not be possible, and that is what's at stake. The second ever champion will be crowned in a week's time before we round off season 3. Ladies and gentlemen, take care. We'll see you then. It's goodbye for now.